Hello, welcome to Level Chain channel by Claudio Fonseca. I'm a real 777 pilot, and today we are going to talk about the CDU initial data. And to start the CDU initial data, instead of the standard document that I'm still going to bring to you on this video, I'm going to start with the Boeing Flight Crew Operations Manual on the part about the CDU. Not only the initial CDU data, but the entire CDU pre-flight procedure. And that is the Boeing procedure itself, okay? I want to highlight a couple of things, and then you are going to understand how we divided this CDU in initial data and performance data and why, okay? So first thing that Boeing says about the CDU pre-flight procedure, which is basically the FMC, is that we can start the CDU pre-flight procedure anytime after the preliminary pre-flight procedure. The preliminary pre-flight procedure we completed 2 videos ago. Then I showed you how to set up your EFB, because the EFB is going to help you a lot on the CDU. And then Boeing says start anytime after the preliminary pre-flight procedure. It doesn't mean that you have to start now, but that's the most common that the companies do around the world. They start after the preliminary pre-flight procedure, okay? So this is not compulsory, but you have to start after preliminary pre-flight procedure at any time, okay? Not before preliminary pre-flight procedure. That's what Boeing is trying to tell us, okay? Then Boeing is going to say to us that the initial data and navigation data entries must be completed before the flight instrument check, which happens during the pre-flight procedure. So Boeing is telling you, okay, you finished the preliminary pre-flight procedure, now you can start the CDU, your FMC, at any time. It doesn't need to be now. If you want to do something else, you do, but before doing the flight instrument check, which is part of the pre-flight procedure, you have to enter at least initial data and navigation data, okay? Then Boeing also states performance data entries must be complete before the before start checklist, okay? So we have 2 different things here. Boeing is bringing us the entire pre-flight procedure that consists of initial data, navigation data, and performance data, okay? So you have these 3 types of data to enter on your FMC. And Boeing tells you that initial data and navigation data must be complete before flight instrument check, before the pre-flight, during the pre-flight procedure in this case, okay? So as our next procedure is the pre-flight, I think that's the best time for you to include initial and navigation data. Later on, you have to insert the performance data, because you still do not have all the performance data available at this time. So you have to enter this later on as you wish, but before the before start checklist. You can even complete before start procedure, or I would say that you cannot complete before start procedure, because the last step of before start procedure is the checklist itself. So just before calling for the checklist, you want to make sure that the performance data on the FMC is also complete, okay? So I would like you to understand these 2 concepts of when to start and when to finish each of the procedures that we have listed here. And I'm going to split this procedure. The blue one is that is what you're going to see on the video, on this video, I'm sorry, and the magenta one is the one that we are going to do later on when I call and I create a video about the CDU performance data, okay? So for this video, we are going to focus on the initial data and navigation data, even though there are some performance data that we already know and we are going to enter anyway, okay? I just want to understand that Boeing allow us to do in different times, okay? What Boeing is doing on the manual itself is to describe the entire pre-flight procedure, but you have these steps and you have these allowances from Boeing is not something that I'm creating. Okay, very important also is that the captain or first officer, one of the each, makes CDU entries, but the other pilot must verify the entries. That's why here on the top, on the CDU pre-flight procedure, Boeing is writing captain and first officer. So one do it, the other one must verify. So this is a procedure that captain and first officer both they have to do. If we continue on the procedure itself, Boeing is going to tell us that we have to enter all data and everything that is in the boxed items. Okay, if you have a box, you have to enter the data. Okay, dashed items or small fonts you have to enter. Okay, you enter data in the dashed items or modify small fonts items that I'm going to cover today. Any other items you can enter or modify at pilot discretion. So Boeing allow the pilots to modify or enter anything on the CDU, of course anything that is going to match the flight plan or the performance or anything that is real data you can enter or modify as needed. And Boeing also states, even though it doesn't publish how you do it, it says that failure to enter en route winds can result in flight plan time and fuel burn errors. That's why I'm going to show you how to enter en route winds to not have this problem. Okay, so I hope you understand the entire concept of the CDU pre-flight by Boeing. Okay, and right now I'm going to bring you my document. Okay, my document is this one, the CDU initial data. Okay, and then for the CDU initial data as described by Boeing, I'm going to talk to you about captain and first officer items. Okay, so both they have to do it. We are going to go through all of this, but basically you have to go through your identification page. Okay, then you go to your position initialization page, then you go to your route page. Once you are done with your route, you can enter departure and arrivals. Then you check the legs page that everything is correct, including the progress page number 1 of 4 and 4 of 4. I'm going to go again with you on all these pages. Then if you have to adjust the radius, you do it on the nav radio page. Then the perform initialization page, as this is a initialization data, you also complete. Note that here I'm not talking about performance data related to your takeoff. I'm talking about the initial data for your performance. Once you have initial data for your performance, you can even start thinking about your VNAV climb page. And then you go to the route data page. This is the page that we are going to set the winds itself. And then also the descent forecast with the winds for the descent. And later on I'm even going to show you the fixed page. You can use fixed page as needed, as you want to include as much information as you need. Okay, so this document is available for you to download through the video description below. Okay, just go through the video description and you can download this document as well. That is going to guide you through this procedure. Okay, today, as this is a CDU procedure, I do not have my automated voice. I'm going to explain all the CDU to you by myself. Okay, so we go back to our airplane, and then let's assume that the captain is going to perform the steps, and then the first officer is going to check. On real line operations, usually most of the companies they ask the pilot flying, which is the pilot that is actually going to perform the takeoff itself, fills the CDU and the other pilot verifies. Okay, there are different ways the company can do captain, always do CDU, first officer always check, or first officer always do, captains always check, or pilot flying do, pilot monitoring check, and the opposite. So it's up to the company to decide. What is the requirement by Boeing is that the both pilots check the procedure. Okay, so let's go. Oops, wrong button. Let's go inside the airplane, and here we are. So you have to go to your menu, FMC, and then once you power up the FMC, you are going to see the ident page. Here on the ident page, you want to see that the airplane model is correct, the engine rating is correct, and the navigation database, the active one, is within the range for your flight. You also have drag and fuel flow here to check, verify, and modify as needed. We have here one information: enter inertial position. I'm going to clear this message. Okay, for the drag and fuel flow factor, if you have a flight plan something like this, you can always check here on what is called here, in my case, cruise degradation. So here, cruise degradation plus 1.5, that's the amount of degradation that we are going to enter here on the fuel flow factor. Okay, so for the fuel flow and or for the drag, if you want to change this, you have to type Alpha Romeo Mike, which means arm, and then you arm the drag and fuel flow factor. Okay, so once you punch it here, you are going to see that the arm is showing for the drag and fuel flow, and now you are able to change. So in this case, we are going to enter slash plus, don't forget about plus 1.5. So here we have the fuel flow factor for this flight. Okay, so to remove the arm, you just navigate to any other page. Okay, and then once you go back to ident, you will see that this is not armed, this line is not armed anymore, and you cannot change. Even if you try to input let's say 0 plus 0, you're going to see that there is an invalid entry. Okay, so before adding the information that you need on drag and fuel flow, you have to arm this line. Okay, then you go to the position initialization, which is the next prompt here on the top, on the bottom right corner. Okay, if you are in any other page and you want to find this page, initial reference, if you didn't finish this page, is going to pop up immediately. If you finish this, okay, you can always go on initial reference, then index, and select the second page, which is the position initialization. Then you make sure you have Guarulhos, in this case SBGR. Okay, and you are going to set the GPS position on your inertial position. Your GPS position will be the most accurate position. You always compare with your reference airport, so if they are very similar, it means that they are both correct, and you use your GPS because it's the more accurate. Okay, then you go to your route page. Again, if you are in the initial position, the route page is the bottom right prompt. If you cannot find, or if you are in any other page, you just need to press route button here. Okay, so route button is going to take you to the route page anyway. Okay, then you have to enter your origin, in this case SBGR, the destination Echo Delta Delta Foxtrot, and your flight number, which today is Victor Romeo Golf 1986 as flight number. Okay, from this one you can do a route request. You can also go to the second page and enter your route manually if you want, or you can enter a company route name. Okay, I'm going to do the easiest way, which is the route request. Okay, if you guys would like to know how to do a manual route input, let me know in the comments below. I can bring you a video about manually creating the route, or even the company route if you wish. But the most common on a 777 is to route request through data link all the route. Some companies, they don't even require you to enter origin, destination and flight number, because only one route will be available to each airplane. Okay, so like today our airplane is Papa Papa Victor Juliet X-ray, and then on the company system at any given time this airplane Papa Papa Victor Juliet X-ray would be able to store only one route data. Okay, so some companies, they don't even require you to enter the origin, destination and flight number, because they know which is your origin, destination and flight number just by your tail number. Okay, some companies, they do ask you to do it, so you make sure you have the correct flight plan, and then you can press, in this case, route request. Once you press route request, something happens here on the sim. Okay, here on the sim you will have this page. This page you do not have in real life. Okay, so you do not have this page in real life. That's something PMDG created for you to be able to tell the FMC which route do you want it to be loaded to your FMC. In this case, we want the sim brief route. Okay, so this is also not a real page. It's just telling you that you have departure from Guarulhos to Frankfurt. That's your alternate Munich, initial altitude is 330, cost index 55, and that's the distance from departure to destination, 5377 miles. Your zero fuel weight 203.8, your reserve fuel 7.5, and your block fuel of 9.8. Okay, so this page also allows you to set your payload, because you have at some point set the required payload, and then it says sim brief payload set. You can clear this message, and also set your fuel, and it says sim brief block fuel set. Okay, these two actions they do not happen like this in real life, of course, because the payload needs to be inside the airplane, or which means the passengers, they need to board, and the cargo needs to be loaded in the cargo compartment. Also, the fuel needs to be completed by a refilling personnel. Okay, by the refilling personnel, they need to bring the truck, or they need to bring the required fuel and actually load this fuel on the airplane. Okay, we just did it like this because these two actions, they are independent from the pilots, and here for this virtual ground course we are talking about the pilot actions. Okay, so once you set your payload and you set your fuel as you need, you can go and select route. Okay, so when you press select route, it's going to revert to the original and standard airplane procedures. So you select route, and then that's what you are going to see. If you were just punching route request, you are going to see route requesting, and then route request sent, and then after a few seconds you have the route uplink, and you have the option to load or to purge this data. In this case, I want to load, and then we have a message here, route 1 uplink loading. In the real airplane, as you go to the second page, okay, you are going to see that the route is going to load step by step. Okay, not all at once as it is here, but it takes more or less this time that just elapsed here. Okay, so we have our route. Note that every time you have a route from data link or a company route, this is not going to include your SID and your arrival, okay? So the route starts at the first point after the SID and the last point before your standard arrival or instrument approach, okay? So that's the route. Then you can make sure that flight number didn't change. If the flight number changed, you can always change the flight number, and in this case, all correct, you can activate and execute, okay? Now that you activated and executed, you have the option to route copy this to the second route, okay? Here on the 777, you have, like in this case, active route 1, and note that you have a prompt for route 2. So if you go to route 2, you have the same type of information as route 1, okay? So once you have something activated on route 1 or route 2, okay, in this case is the route 1 that is active, you can copy the route to the opposite one. In this case, I route copy here, it says route copy complete, and then now if I go to route 2, I'm going to see the same data on route 2. This is very handful. If you make a mistake later on, you just have to change to route 2 if you need, or even if you want to change your route 2 to include your engine out procedure or your flight plan to return back to Guarulhos if you need, or something like that. We are going to do it later on, okay? I'm going to show you on this video how to do it as well. Now that we have an orange and a destination to our FMC, we can go to departure and arrival page, and once you press departure and arrival page and you are on the ground, is going to open on the departures for your origin based on the active route, which is in this case route 1. We are departing today runway 10 left, so I recommend you to start from the right side from the runways, because once you select the runway that you want, all the SIDs that are not available to that runway, they will be erased from the list, okay? So once you select the runway that you want, in this case 10 left, you will only have the SIDs available to that runway. So the list of SIDs, they reduce quite a lot, and then it's easier for you to check and select your SID, which is in this case AMVU for Alpha, and our transition today is Nuxel, okay? So you select the runway, then if you have an SID, you select an SID, and then if you have a transition, you select this transition. Once you selected everything, you can execute the modification. One more time, you can go to departure and arrival pages, and now because you are opening the departure and arrival pages again, you can select what you want. In this case, I need my arrivals in Frankfurt. It's still on route 1, okay? So I go to departure and arrival, and most probably I'm going to land on the ILS 07 right. One more time, select the approach and or the runway from the right side, then you are going to see only the arrivals to that runway on the left side. So in this case, as you can see, there are 10 pages here, because there are 10 different arrivals, runways, procedures, everything, okay? Once I select ILS 7 right, this reduces to 5, so we only have half of the arrivals here. So ILS 7 right, if you have a transition and you know the transition, you can select the transition for the ILS, in this case Delta Fox 654, and also your arrival, which in our case is the on the first page, NPAX 5 Charlie arrival, okay? There is no transition for this arrival, but if there was a transition, you are going to select the transition from the list as well. Once you select everything that you know or that you need, in this case on the Frankfurt arrivals, I selected the ILS 7 right, Delta Fox 654 transition, and the NPAX 5 Charlie arrival. I can execute this, okay? After completing this, I go to my legs page, and on the legs page I want to make sure that all the information on my departure and on my flight plan it is here. Okay, so I think the best camera to do it is this one, where I can bring my iPad and we can go to our charts, SID, AMVU for alpha, and I can come really close to the AMVU for alpha departure. Okay, here we are. So basically what we have is from AMVU 5 miles 094 towards, sorry, from the runway, my mistake, from the runway itself, from where you start your flight, okay, heading 094 5 miles to AMVU, 094 5 miles to AMVU. Then you have 080 3 miles to Gulf Romeo 222, flight level 100 or below. So 080 3 miles to Gulf Romeo 222, flight level 100 or below. Then I continue on the heading 080 for 18 miles towards Gulf Romeo 217, and in this case is above flight level 100. So still heading 080, 18 miles to Gulf Romeo 217, and at this time flight level 100 or above. Then another left turn, now is heading 032, 7.3 miles to Gulf Romeo 218. So 032, 7 miles, Gulf Romeo 218. Then I have on the same heading 032, I continue towards for 13 miles towards VUMEV. Okay, so 032, 13 miles towards VUMEV. Then I have slightly right heading 036, 37 miles towards Nuxel. So next page, 035, 37 miles towards Nuxel. Okay, basically any heading more or less 2 degrees is correct. You can validate more or less 2 degrees, and also the distance within 1 mile. So here you have 37.1. If it's showing something above 36 and something less than 38, it is fine. Okay, so this is our departure. Okay, so remember, distance is going to be plus minus 1 mile, and the direction plus minus 2 degrees. Okay, once you finish this, you can also go to your progress page on the first one and make sure your distance to go to destination matches your flight plan. In this case, 5463. So let's go to our flight plan, and here we have a distance of 5492. This 29 miles difference is because here is selected runway, sorry, here on the FMC selected runway. One more time, 7 right with the Impax 5 Charlie, and on my flight plan I have Impax 5 Delta with runway 7 left. Okay, so I use 7 right because I think that's our arrival runway in Frankfurt. Usually if you're coming from the south, you land on the south runway, but SimBrief created to me the longest route going all the way to runway 07 left in case we need. Okay, so this distance check is not going to match perfectly, but it needs to be something reasonable, and you need to understand the difference. If you were doing the opposite, if you were selecting a longer arrival to a more distant runway, you will have to see this number here slightly above the number here. Always check towards your ground distance. Okay, what you see here is your distance to go, is your ground distance. 5492 against 5463, which is perfectly correct. Then you can go to your page number 4 of 4 on the RNP, and you need to check your RNP for departure, which in this case is 1.0. If you go to your chart again, you are going to see that it says here RNP 1. Okay, so RNP1 is written here. You want to make sure that you have the same information here. If this was RNP5, you could come here and change this to 5. No problem. You are going to have the message verify RNP entry. You just clear this and you have the 5 there as your actual RNP. As you can see here on your navigation display, 5 is already there, okay? But in this case was correct, so I can delete this 5. So number 1 is correct. That's my RNP for departure, okay? Once you have your RNP correct and you check is correct, you can move to the navigation radius page and you can set anything that you want on your departure, okay? In this case here, as we have an RNAV departure, that is not a single radio available for us to monitor on this departure, so you don't have to do anything, just leave as it is. The FMC is going to set up the closest VORs around you during your departure, okay? So that completes pretty much our route. Then you are going to go, let me just remove this from here, then you are going to go to your performance initialization. Remember, we are still adding the initialization data to the airplane, okay? The easiest way is to go to route, the first page that you were the last page that you were completing in sequence was route, and then once you are on the route page, on the bottom right you have performance initialization. If you are in any other page like we were in progress and you don't want to go to route and performance initialization, you can always go back to initial reference and it's going to show you perform initialization if you completed position and ident page, okay? If you didn't complete position and ident page, it's going to show you the position. If you didn't complete the ident, it was going to show you the ident page, okay? So on this sequence, as we already complete ident, it's not going to show anymore unless you come to this prompt. If you press one more time and the position initialization page was not complete, that was going to show. And in this case, if you press it, initial reference is go to the next sequence of pages not completed, which in this case is the performance page, is the one that you need, okay? So remember, route, performance init, or if you fill it up ident and position page, just initial reference, okay? If at any time you are confused about pages, always press initial reference, index, and then you can choose any page from here, which in this case is performance, okay? So then you start with your reserves. Our reserves for today, let's check again on our FMC is on our EFB is 7.5. That's why I told you to set up your EFB before, so you can have all the information ready for you. So 7.5, so you type here 7.5, and the estimated zero fuel weight you were going to get from there as well. Our estimated zero fuel weight is 203.9, okay? 203,818, so 203.9. We punch here 203.9 as zero fuel weight, okay? Then your cruise altitude. For your cruise altitude, you can check here. Your initial altitude planned today was flight level 330, so you can set here 330 as your planned flight level. And one more time, cost index in this case here is 55, so you can select cost index 55 as well to this flight, okay? Then the rest here you do not have to change, but if you know you have a different minimum fuel temperature, you can change. And also your cruise CG, if you have any application that is going to give you this information through your load sheet, you can change it later on. And also the step size, which I don't see any reason why not to use RVSM initially, unless you are going to fly ocean and you can accept any level. then you are going to change this to 1000, okay? But in our case today, as we are flying domestically in Brazil initially until we reach Atlântico, and then we are going to be over the ocean, for now we are going to keep R, which stands for RVSM, okay? You can also write RVSM, it also accepts, okay? Let me just show you that it accepts, because it can take I for ICAO or RVSM. In this case, in the PMDG doesn't accept, so just go for R, RVSM, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I for ICAO, okay? Or select as much as you want, 2000 feet step climbs, 1000 feet step climbs. You can have anything up to 9000 feet step climbs, is up to you, okay? I do recommend you to keep RVSM or 1000, okay? Those are the options that we usually have in real world, okay? Then the next step here would be thrust limit. Remember, we still do not have the performance for our takeoff, so the thrust limit is something that we are not going to complete right now. As we finish performance initialization, now if you go to any other page and you press initial reference, is going to come, in this case, in the takeoff reference page, okay? It goes, it jumps the thrust limit. That's the only time it jumps something from this list. It jumps the thrust limit, goes straight to takeoff, but you can always come back on the thrust limit page here. So that's something we are not going to do now. We are going to do this later on, but there are more things that we can check on the FMC, things that are not going to change, which is basically now our VNAV, okay? So now that we already told the system that we are climbing 330, we can check the speeds that FMC is programming for us. In this case, 250 knots until 10,000 feet, then 320 knots until we reach Mach decimal 827. The next restriction is flight level 100 or below at Golf Romeo 222, and what is very important for you here is to check the transition altitude, which in this case is 8000. If you check your chart here, you are going to see transition altitude is showing here 8000, okay? So you want to make sure the same value is here. If it was incorrect, you just have to write what is the correct transition altitude and set here on the third line on the right side, okay? Now that you did this, you can go to your route page data. Sorry, to your route data page is different, okay? So you go to the legs, and then on the legs, here on the bottom right, you have route data, which means the data for your route, okay? Once you press route data, you are still going to have the legs, but then you are going to have information on time, fuel, and wind, okay? So you have time, fuel, and wind for the same waypoint, okay? And in this case, what you want from this point is to request your wind data, okay? So it's going to say wind data requesting, and in a couple of seconds you are going to see a prompt for you to load this data. So here it comes. Now it says sent, and there is a new message: wind data uplink is ready, so you can load the wind data now. Once you load the wind data, you are going to see the W here. The W means that there is a valid wind for these fixes, and you can execute. Once you execute, most probably you get another message, which is descent forecast uplink ready, okay? As everything is coming here through an FMC communication, there are a couple of ways for you to go to this descent forecast page. The first one is go to VNAV, next page, and press forecast, okay? So on the descent, you press forecast. The other way, if you are at any other page, okay, just press FMC.com, and then you are going to see here on the left bottom what is pending for you to uplink, which is in this case the descent forecast. Okay, so you can only with 2 clicks, okay, remember you are at any page, only 2 clicks you go there, FMC.com descent forecast. Okay, so here you are going to see that descent forecast uplink is ready to be loaded, or you can purge the data as well. So in this case we want to load. So you are going to see that in a few seconds the altitudes and the wind directions, they populate here. You make sure you have the correct transition level if you already know the transition level, or later on in flight you can come here and verify the transition level as well. If you did not have the descent forecast ready message, you can always on this page on the descent forecast do a forecast request. So it's going to happen the same way. Okay, so it's requesting this data, so the request was sent, and now you are going to see that the data is ready again, and you can load the data again, or for the first time if you didn't have the prompt before. Okay, and then the last 2 steps for these flights today. You can go to your fix page and use the fix page as you want. I do a couple of things on this fix page. Okay, so let me bring my iPad again. Okay, something that I do, I check here what is my MSA. Okay, so it says here that around the airport the highest MSA for me is 5,900. So around the airport, and my departure airport is Sierra Bravo Golf Romeo. Okay, so 25 miles around, so I take Sierra Bravo Golf Romeo / 25. Okay, so I create an circle of 25 miles around the airport. Always this is 25 miles unless it is stated differently, like in this case there is an arc here of 15 miles and so on, but if it's not written, the MSA is always 25 miles around the airport. Okay, so that's why I selected 25. Okay, also my highest MSA is 5,900. Usually I come here and I select 5,900 and I click here on the altitude. Okay, so then what I'm going to see from this page, 2 things. Let me just increase the zoom here. First is the circle around the airport, which I just created, and the other one is the 5,900 feet altitude. That's the point supposedly I'm going to reach my MSA. Okay, way before my 25 miles, so I have an idea about it. Okay, also I always set my transition altitude. Not only I verify here on VNav, but I take this altitude, which in this case is 8,000, and I take on the fix. As fix 1 is already occupied, I can go to the next page and punch on the next page, number 2. Okay, so in this case it's going to show me where I'm going to reach my transition altitude, and that's also a remind me for me to select my altimeters from local QNH to standard. Okay, so these are the 2 things that I always do. If I do have an engine out departure, I'm going to select this as well. Okay, like I cannot select runway 10 left, okay, unless I do something like this. Now I go to departure and arrival, and instead of my departures and arrival for route 1, I want to see my arrivals back to Guarulhos on route 2 in case I need to come back to Guarulhos. I selected, as you remember from previous video, I've selected my ILS Oscar runway 10 left from Lomen. Okay, so I'm going to select on route 2 approaches to Guarulhos ILS Oscar 10 left, and then Lomen transition. Then I go to the legs page. Note that I was changing route 2 departure. It opens straight on the route 2 legs, and now I'm going to bring this information back here. So I do not want all this data. I just want to come back, instead of going to Nuxel and all of this, I just want to come back to Lomen. Okay, so now on my route to, what I have is a direct to Lomen, then approach transition from there to the ILS Oscar 10 left towards runway 10 left, and then if I need to go around, missed approach towards Lomen. So if something happens during my departure, I can at any time change from legs to route 2 legs, select where I want to go, in this case direct Lomen, and activate and execute the legs 2, and I'm already coming back to Guarulhos. Okay, another thing that I can do now that I have runway 10 left on my fix, I can copy runway 10 left and take this to my fix page. Okay, so I'm going to create a runway 10 left fix now. So I know that my engine out, in case I have any problems on the departure, I'm safe if I continue climbing straight ahead up to 25 miles. So I can come here and select 275, which is the bearing from the runway, 25 miles. Okay, so when I create this, I'm going to see sorry, my bearing is 095, is the same as the runway heading, right? 095, 25 miles. Here we go. Now I can see, I'm going to even reduce my zoom here. You're going to see that I have a green line on my departure. Okay, so basically I can take my standard departure also from runway 10 left, AMVU for Alpha. Okay, I do not even want a transition. Okay, I just want to go, oops, how we do this, one more time, legs. Okay, this is route 1 up to AMVU, and then I want to go, sorry, to this place, 10 left, 095, 10 left, 095 / 25. I do not think that is going to, yeah, so it happened here. Now what I just created was a fix at that point. Okay, so if I need, I can continue straight ahead on runway for 25 miles, so I know I'm going to fly all the way there, and this is all the time I have climbing straight ahead until I reach 5,900 feet, and then I know I can make any turn within this circle. Okay, so now that I created the circle, I created the point, I'm going to delete this and just say heading 095, just as the reference that I have. Okay, so here we go. I have the straight line, I have my point, I have everything that I need. I know that if something happens, I have to start holding here. As we have terrain to the left, I'm going to hold it to the north. So also on legs page number 2, I can create a hold, next hold on this fix, and 095 to the right, and instead of 1 minute, I'm going to create a 5 mile leg there, easier for me. And my altitude, my minimum safe altitude for this one is, if I continue straight ahead on my departure, you are going to see that my minimum altitude is 5,200. So I can even come here and say 5,200 or above. Then if I execute the route 2 towards this point and I cannot reach 5,200 by that fix, I'm going to have a message on my FMC. Okay, so with 5,200 I can already turn right and accept radar vectors. But if I want to turn left, I need 5,900, or within 15 miles 5,700. Okay, so all of this based on our engine related problems in case we need to come back after landing. Okay, so I showed you how to set up then fixed pages Okay, so I have Guarulhos 24 miles for my MSA, 5,900 is the highest MSA. On the next page I have flight to level weight 0, which is 8,000 feet for my transition altitude. I also have runway 10 and the bearing 095 in case I need to continue straight ahead. On the legs page, on the route number 1, I have my standard SID. On the route number 2, I have my flight from Anvil. Instead of turning left and continue on the SID, I'm continuing straight ahead on runway 10 left for 25 miles, and then I hold there. Anytime I need, I have my comeback towards Lomen to shoot the ILS Oscar runway 10 left. Okay, so that completes my route itself, not only route 1 but also route 2. Also fixed pages, I showed you how you can use fixes, bearing, distance, altitudes. You can also set times. Okay, so right now is 0344. I want to know or my departure, let's say it's 0400 Zulu. I can even set here and it's going to show me where I would be at 0400 in 15 minutes. Let me just go here. Oops, let me change and increase the range. Okay, so this is the point that I'm going to reach at 0400. Of course, as the time continues to elapse, this 0400 is going to start coming back until eventually reaches the top of my airplane, because it's going to be at the top of my airplane at 0400. Okay, so just an example for you how to set up any time if you want. Okay, so I do not need this time, this is just an option, so I'm going to delete the time itself. And here we are, we finish the CDU initial data. Okay, remember, now we just need to enter our thrust limit and takeoff information and our takeoff numbers. Okay, so this is something that we are going to do later on. So this is the end of the CDU initial data. Okay, guys, I hope you understand what I did, why I separate the CDU pre-flight and CDU initial data. It's a lot of things on the initial data. It's pretty much everything that you need apart from your performance, and then later on, when the company confirms to us the zero fuel weight, when we have a reliable zero fuel weight to work with, we are going to set this into our performance applications, and then we are going to set the performance application results into the FMC before we start the flight itself. Okay, so if you like, give us the thumbs up, share this with your friends, and I hope to see you next video, where we are going to talk about the exterior inspection on the 777. A couple of things that we need to make sure are in place also on the 777 by PMDG. Okay, thank you so much, guys. See you next time. Bye bye.